The NBA just recently said goodbye to one of the greatest players in Chicago Bulls history, as Derrick Rose decided to call it quits at the age of 35. Rose was a 6'3" point guard who came into the league as the first overall pick in the 2008 draft. What immediately stood out about Derrick is how he was one of the most athletically gifted and explosive point guards that the league has ever seen. Not only was he lightning fast, but he cut to the basket and finished at the rim as if he was always angry. He was like the point guard version of Shawn Kemp. We've seen a lot of explosive point guards throughout the years, like Russell Westbrook, Steve Francis, and Ja Morant, just to name a few. But if you ask me, none of those guys were quite as explosive as Derrick Rose was at his peak. Not only was he a thunderous dunker, but he was one of the best finishers in league history, as he was equipped with an all-time great layup package. He was the Rookie of the Year winner in the 08-09 season, and he earned 3 consecutive All-Star selections between 2010 and 2012. The very peak of his career was in 2011 though, which was when he led his Chicago Bulls to a 62-20 record, which was good enough for the best record in the entire league. That year, he averaged 25 points, 8 assists, and 4 rebounds on nearly 45% shooting. Thanks to this incredible season-long performance, he was rewarded with a league MVP, ahead of Dwight Howard, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and Kevin Durant. This made Rose the youngest MVP in league history, as he was only 22 years old, with seemingly his best years long ahead of him. It's also worth noting that this Chicago group was the best defense in the entire league, but they were also in the bottom half of the league offensively. If it wasn't for Rose, they would have been easily one of the top 5 worst offenses in the NBA. I remember it being a massive talking point in the 2011 season, but nowadays, Rose doesn't get nearly enough credit for carrying that team offensively, and he did it in a similar fashion to Allen Iverson in 2001. They made it all the way to the 2011 Eastern Conference Finals, before they were outmatched by LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh of the Miami Heat. Despite the fact that Chicago just lost to Miami in 5 games, and despite the fact that Miami bolstered a super team, people were still speculating whether or not Rose would lead the Bulls to be a rival to the Heat. That's the level of confidence that we all had in this man's potential. Unfortunately, you all know what happened next. After finishing the 2011-2012 regular season with the best record in the NBA, Rose went down with an ACL tear in his first game of the 2012 playoffs. He had 23 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists at the time he got injured. A devastated Bulls team lost 4 out of the next 5 games, as they were easily eliminated by the 8th-seeded Philadelphia 76ers. Not only did Rose miss the entirety of the 2012 playoffs, but he also missed the entirety of the 2012-2013 season. He then returned in the 2013-14 regular season, but was only able to play in 10 regular season games before an injury to his right meniscus shut down that season as well. By the time that Rose finally got back to a healthy state on the basketball court, he no longer had the same explosiveness, and understandably, he often seemed timid about testing his new limits. Rose eventually became a journeyman playing for New York, Cleveland, Minnesota, Detroit, and Memphis. But at best, he was a role player during those seasons, as most of the basketball community, including yours truly, was hoping and waiting for him to return to the level of his former glory. For a short period of time, he did have a bit of a resurgence in Minnesota, and even had a 50-point game against the Utah Jazz, which occurred on Halloween night 2018. It's fondly remembered as one of the better feel-good moments in NBA history, as even Rose was emotional after the game was over. In reality, Rose only had the first 4 seasons of his career as a top-tier player. So now, after his retirement, people are beginning to question whether or not he deserves a spot in the Basketball Hall of Fame. First off, I understand why a lot of people think he shouldn't get in. Rose only had 4 seasons of elite level basketball, and he technically never even reached the prime of his career. If we're simply putting him in the Hall of Fame for what we think he would have been, then that's an unfair and inconsistent standard, since there are many other players who are not currently in that should get in by that logic. The thing is, of the major American sports, basketball probably has the lowest bar for the Hall of Fame. For example, Tracy McGrady was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2017, and much of his career was also seen as a what if, since his playing days were cut short due to his various injuries. T-Mac was a 2-time scoring champion, a 7-time All-Star, and won the Most Improved Player award in 2001. But when you compare that to the resume of Derrick Rose, we really have to ask ourselves which player was more accomplished, as Rose was the Rookie of the Year winner in 2009. He earned 3 All-Star selections, and he was the youngest MVP in NBA history in 2011. And that alone is an impressive feat that immortalizes him. Then you have to consider the context of his impact. Outside of the Michael Jordan days, the Bulls franchise has never had much success before or since. And yet, a young athlete in his early 20s led them all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they competed with a legitimate super team. Sure, the greatness of Rose was short-lived, but in terms of a player's peak, there's a lot of guys in the Basketball Hall of Fame who never got close to reaching the level of greatness that Rose reached in his early 20s. In conclusion, if guys like Tracy McGrady and Grant Hill are considered good enough to get in, then I don't see how it's fair to keep a guy like Derrick Rose out. So what do you guys think? Does Rose deserve to be in the Basketball Hall of Fame? And how high do you think his ceiling was without the injuries? I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.